Hello everyone, Brendan here, and today I will be doing the light painting tutorial. So if you haven't already seen the multiple exposures tutorial, I would recommend watching that one first, just because a lot of what I do today will build off of that. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started. Ignore that one right there. These two are the raw images for the light painting, and I'll actually start by covering how I was able to shoot these. So, select just this one. So this one was just to get the lights, and like I said, I do cover this in the other tutorial a little bit, but I'll just recap briefly. Very closed aperture, so this is at f/18, and pretty quick shutter speed. I mean, considering how dark it is, 1.6 isn't all that slow, and we're only trying to capture the lights of the car. If we zoom in, we can see the starburst effect. Looks pretty cool. And alright. Okay, so this image is where we actually do the painting. First I'll go over what I physically had to do to get this photo. Set up your camera on a tripod. Well, it should be on a tripod from shooting this photo as well. But yeah, leave it on the same tripod and use a photo light to walk around the car and make sweeping motions with the light across the car. I used the Lume Cube for this. I can link to it in the description for the video. It's a fantastic light. It's ridiculously powerful, rechargeable, waterproof. It's fantastic. So yeah, I'll link to that in the description. But yeah, basically you just sweep the light across the car as evenly as possible. And there's actually a tip that I learned from S. Thompson on Instagram. I can tag him in the description. And he said basically when you get to the wheels on a car that has dark wheels, such as this car, make small circular motions with the light aimed at the wheels. And by pausing for a moment to do that, you're able to illuminate them a lot more, because if you didn't pay attention to them, they'd be pretty dark and you'd only really see the paint of the car. White and silver cars, just light colored cars, are always easier to light paint. Black cars are darn near impossible to paint for a couple reasons. First of all, the paint doesn't light up as much, but also it reflects the light a lot worse than any other color. So as you can see, there are a lot of streaks on the paint, and one thing that we'll be covering today is how to remove those and some techniques that I have for removing them. And then we'll complete the photo in Photoshop, come back to Lightroom, and go ahead and export it, and I can show you guys the final version. So let's go ahead and select these two. We will go up to Photo, Edit in Photoshop. Oh, nope, Open as Layers in Photoshop, because we want the two of these. And this one, forgot to mention, 25-second exposure time. f/18 still, ISO 100. I'm on a crop sensor, so that could be very different for you. But just trial and error, as with anything. Give it a shot and see what works. You can do this also with an iPhone light. Works pretty well. Even if your light isn't powerful enough for you to capture everything in one exposure, you can blend together multiple light painting exposures, and it's super easy. Photoshop, blend mode lighten, yeah. Okay, so it's ready to go. First thing we will do is blend mode lighten. Boom, and as you can see, the lights are on. Looks pretty cool. Let's see if there's anything annoying in this layer. Sometimes your headlight layer, or taillight layer, can create some annoying things in other parts of the image, but I don't think it's doing that here. No, it's all good. So pretty much all we need to do is address the streaks, and I won't remove all of them in front of you guys, but I will remove some of them. So let's use the patch tool. I don't think I've ever used this in a tutorial before, so I'll spend some time talking about it. I don't really know how to describe it, but oh, I'm on a trackpad and my finger slipped off of it, so let's try that again. So basically, it's going to take the wrong layer selected. Basically, it's going to take the texture from here, and then if I drag it up over here, it's going to drop it down right there. Now, one thing that is, well, basically I try to avoid when using the patch tool is, let's see if I can say this in a way that makes sense. If the thing that you're trying to remove, especially a streak of light, goes to the edge of the patch area, you'll get these weird flares. And I'm not exactly sure how to describe that, but it will pretty much always happen. So I do try to avoid that. So let's find an area where using the patch tool would be really easy. Right here. And it's like somewhat content aware as well. Oh, whoops. Boom. As you can see, that looks great. It removed it super easily. Let's see if I can do this. I don't think that's the right shape. We'll give it a try. I got some of it. That's decent. Like I said, try to avoid going into areas like that. It pretty much always turns out badly. It's lagging a little bit, but there we go. So yeah, you can use the patch tool, and of course I'm doing this really rough, but yeah, it's not too bad. So you can use the patch tool to remove reflections. It works pretty well. The clone stamp tool can also be used. For example, up here I'd probably opt for the clone stamp. Hold down the Option key to choose where you'd like to sample from. I'll sample from here, and then just click and drag. It's super easy. You can do multiple clicks, you can do a single click. So yeah, that is that tool. And then the third tool that I will use is the Spot Healing Brush tool. I think I got the name right, let's see. Yep, Spot Healing Brush tool. Let's see. Yeah, right here. Might be a good place to try it out. So, actually I think there's like a body panel contour there, so actually I'll just do it up here. This is the content aware mode, and I will show you guys what that does. So it's pretty smart, and it just got rid of that unwanted streak. And this will work in some areas, like this one. I knew it would work pretty well here, but in some areas it will not. For example, removing this, which I did do for the final version of this photo, that I had to pretty much just clone stamp. There was no way around it. It was very tedious. And sometimes it kind of samples from the wrong area. You can usually fix it. It's not being friendly today, but I can of course just fix it manually with this tool. So yeah, when you remove these reflections, one tool is definitely not going to do it for the whole thing. You're going to have to switch between these three quite frequently. But let me also show you guys the blending feature on that Spot Healing Brush tool. So there's another mode called Proximity Match, and I can find a good area to use that. So it's pretty different than the content aware. Basically it's used for blending when you have a weird, like if you have a seam where the two shades don't really match up and it doesn't form a nice gradient, this can do a lot of nice blending. So let me artificially try to create that situation for you guys to show you guys how it works. Okay, so you see we kind of have a weird seam there. Okay, yeah, now we can use this And if we work around this area, it's selecting from the wrong location. Let's see. There you can see it kind of blended it in. So I can show you guys a little bit. So you can see it's kind of doing blending, but because it's not content aware like the other one, this is very frustrating. It's picking its content from just random places, and this is quite frequent if you use it. So if this were to happen to you, you just use the content aware and get rid of it. So by going between, zoomed in a little bit too much, these two tools, you can get most things fixed. So yeah, basically just play around with it and see how it works for you. Let me see if I can find another area to demonstrate how this works. I will use content aware for this area. We could do a proximity match up here, possibly. Let's see. Oh, the wrong key. But I might sample from the wrong area. Yep, sampled from the wrong area, so that didn't work too well. It might work here. Yep, because we are on that seam, we can get that. But it still, as you can see, made that little black mark, because I don't know where it sampled that from, but that's quite common. So we'll just work our way around the car and remove these. Now I'm back to the content aware mode. And it did kind of mess up the line right there. The car did have a slight contour right there. So I think that when I did the photo, the final version of the photo, I think I used the clone stamp and was super careful with it rather than using this, because this will really just mess up any lines that you have. But that's still, I'm still able to show you what it does. Let's see this one. Could also use a smaller brush. There we go. So yeah, basically it'll take a while, but just work your way around the car, get rid of all of these, and that's pretty much it for Photoshop. You'd hit Command S and then end up back in Lightroom, and you'd have something like this. Of course, I edited this photo before, so I wouldn't have to do it on camera, but same process as I just showed you guys, those tools, patch tool, clone stamp, and the healing brush, and eventually I got through it and had a photo like this. So I made some slight Lightroom adjustments. I'll just go through them super quickly. I was very particular about getting the color of this car to be correct. Sometimes when light painting, you can get weird colors into your photo, especially in the background. So I dealt with that a little bit with a gradient filter, which of course only adjusted the background. Like I dropped the temperature a little bit, and that made a pretty big difference. Bumped the exposure a little bit, and yeah, this is the end result. I have a few more of these too that I can show you guys. So to get this one, I had to spend a lot of time shining the light into the car to show the seats, but I really liked the effect. This was super, super tricky, which is why I didn't do the tutorial with this one, because the car is dark gray. It blends in with the asphalt. Dark cars in general are harder to light paint, just super tricky. Another one, white R8, did the same thing so that you could see those awesome red seats. You can also experiment with only light painting part of the car, as I did on this Ferrari 458. I just spent more time on one side of the car than I did on the other. We had a pretty cool look. Here's another one with the R8. Yeah, just evenly light painted and did another exposure with the headlights. So that's it. Hope you guys find that useful, and as always, like, comment, or just let me know what else you'd like to see. in the future for a tutorial, and I'd love to do it.